Why is it we have so many millionaires and we still have so many impoverished people who try to get up into the world?
First place, nirvana is not for this world. There is no paradise.
During a Q&A, Milton Friedman was hit with the 1980s version of Tax the Rich. And the way he dismantled the premise was so sharp that he left the lady completely speechless. And today, we're covering it all. By the way, we just rebranded the channel so it helps with the algorithm and better reflects our mission. But don't worry, the content you know is staying exactly the same. So hit the subscribe button and welcome to the Red, White, and Rational.
Why is it we have so many millionaires and everything in the United States and we still have so many impoverished people who try to get up into the world? Why is it we have this lack of money where people who can't support themselves decently and get a decent job, where all these big men are up on top making oodles and oodles of money? They don't need it. They can only eat that much, sleep in the bed.
And what do you suppose they do? If they don't eat it and don't use it, what do you suppose they do?
They hoard it.
What do you mean they hoard it? You mean they put it under their pillows?
That's right. No, they keep investing it.
Investing it in what?
That's right. Yeah.
What are they invested in?
Well, in oil and everything, where, I mean, all these other people who are
What are they invested in? Don't get off the subject.
No.
What are they invested in?
Well, they invested in a lot of different things that the little people need.
Well, do they invest it in factories?
Yes.
Does some of that money end up in machines?
Yes.
Do those factories and machines provide ordinary working people with jobs or not? What do you suppose the productivity of this country would be and of the wage rate would be if the total amount of capital in this country today was what it was 100 years ago?
This clip is from 1980, but you could play it today and it would fit right in the current debate. We constantly hear people on the far left talking about the evil 1%. Yet a lot of them seem to have no clue how the economy actually works. For instance, a couple of weeks ago, everyone's favorite Congresswoman AOC went on a podcast and argued, quote, "You can't earn $1 billion. You can break rules, you can abuse labor laws, you can pay people less than they're worth, but you can't earn that, right? And so you have to create a myth. You have to create a myth of earning it." Now, some people claimed she was approaching this from a moral standpoint, and she doesn't actually believe that it's possible to make $1 billion. But I'll let you decide whether that explanation holds up. Milton then broke down what really drives inequality, and he made some valid points.
But let me go to your fundamental question. First place, nirvana is not for this world. There is no paradise. But if you look at it over time, if you get a sense of proportion, the well-being of ordinary people has been the main thing that has been improved by economic progress and economic growth and development. And most residual hard cases of poverty today are the result, again, of a failure of government. Why do we have a black teenage unemployment rate in 30 to 40%? Because of two failures of government. One, a failure to provide decent schooling, which is a governmental responsibility. Has been, whether it should be or not, it has been. And second, because of a minimum wage rate, which prevents those kids who haven't had decent schooling from getting jobs at low pay at which they can earn the skills on the jobs that would enable them to rise to higher pay.
Exactly. If we do a simple thought experiment and compare how the average American lived a century ago with how the poorest Americans live today, there's a massive difference. CDC data shows life expectancy has increased by nearly 20 years, while Census Bureau figures reveal that things most of us barely think about anymore, like indoor plumbing, electricity, and central heating, were far from common back then. In other words, the system has dramatically improved living standards across the board. Another point is, it's increasingly trendy to go after billionaires by pointing to their net worth, while conveniently ignoring the fact that they built major companies, developed products people use every day, hired thousands of workers, and revolutionized entire industries. Jeff Bezos actually talked about this on a recent CNBC interview, and his argument was pretty interesting.
And Elizabeth Warren has made this point repeatedly. I think she's made it in reference to you and others, are able to pay a lower tax rate, even though you're paying an enormous sum in taxes, a lower tax rate than maybe I am.
These people sometimes say that I don't pay taxes. That's true. I pay billions of dollars in taxes. And it's a perfect, again, if people want me to pay more billions,
Right.
then let's have that debate. But don't pretend, that's going to solve the problem. You could double the taxes I pay, and it's not going to help that teacher in Queens. I promise you. And I think this is an important point to make, because people forget, or they sometimes don't see, that when you create something like Amazon and you're saving, I get letters from new mothers all the time that say, like, I have no idea what I would be doing right now if I didn't have Amazon, thank you. Or what we did in the pandemic when people could really see what an essential service we provided to them. And so, this is, Amazon creates tremendous value. And by the way, all companies are creating value of some kind.
Yep. Take the Walton family, for example. The heirs of Walmart's founder and still the company's largest shareholders. Now, a 2020 Bloomberg report estimated they were making $3 million an hour, or about $50,000 every minute. That's more than many Americans earn in an entire year. But if you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, Walmart is the largest private employer in the country, supporting massive economic activity, with some estimated putting its impact at roughly 2% of U.S. GDP, and thus generating billions in tax revenue. Meanwhile, politicians like Bernie, AOC, and Mandami spend their careers criticizing wealth creation. But what have they built their entire lives? Nothing. It's pretty interesting how they spent years talking about helping the little guy and lifting people out of poverty. But their biggest success story is their bank account.
If you look at the sources of poverty, you will find most of them are derived from what I regard as wrong-headed government policies.
Just before we break here, and we have to, I want to make sure I understand you. Because the government sets a minimum wage, what does McDonald's do?
McDonald's? It can't hire as many teenagers. It improves its capital equipment to serve. It does less business because it has to charge higher hamburger prices. In the absence of a minimum wage, McDonald's would be able to offer a larger number of jobs to a larger number of youngsters, and they would be able to acquire some skills. And not only McDonald's.
So we hire more people get work. Younger people.
The younger people would work, and they get a chance to develop their skills to become productive members of society instead of being driven into a cycle of poverty and of welfare, which is absolutely deplorable.
Now, this isn't to say we should have a free-for-all economy with no rules whatsoever. But the opposite extreme is not the answer either. Overregulation can be just as damaging, especially when it makes it harder for business to grow, hire, and innovate. So there has to be a balance somewhere in the middle. The problem is, many of the politicians on the far left approach this debate from the belief that wealth itself is inherently suspicious or unethical. And once that becomes the mindset, balance goes out the window. It stops being about what actually works and turns into a pursuit of ideological goals, even at the expense of the average Joe.